Welcome, dear listener, to a story whispered through the quiet lanes of a sleepy English village, a tale wrapped in mystery, shadows, and secrets. Tonight, we journey to King's Abbot, where beneath the calm surface of village life, a chilling crime has shattered the peace. This is the story of the murder of Roger Ackroyd, a case that puzzles even the most brilliant minds and reveals the fragile threads that bind truth and deception. As you settle into your cozy nook, let your mind drift gently into this world of rich characters, a doctor, a devoted niece, a troubled stepson, and of course, the meticulous detective Hercule Poirot. Together, we will unravel a tapestry of hidden motives, whispered confessions, and unexpected twists. But fear not, this story will unfold softly, like a lullaby of intrigue, guiding you towards the quiet truths resting beneath the surface. So close your eyes if you wish, breathe deeply, and allow the soothing cadence of this tale to carry you through a night of mystery and calm reflection. Let us begin this journey together, one chapter, one scene, one secret at a time. The soft glow of the late afternoon sun stretched across the quaint village of King's Abbot, casting long shadows that danced gently upon cobblestone streets. The air held the faint scent of freshly baked bread and blooming lilacs, wrapping the village in a comforting embrace. Here, in this peaceful corner of England, life moved with a quiet steadiness, the kind of calm that settles deep into the bones. As the camera would pan slowly, you'd see figures dressed in modest yet sharp clothing, a style that whispers of the 1940s through the 1960s tweed coats, felt hats, and delicate gloves, all tinted with the soft sepia of memory. The villagers went about their day, exchanging friendly nods, their faces lined with stories of decades past. Among them, the distinguished figure of Roger Ackroyd stands tall, his posture a blend of confidence and weariness. He adjusts his tie, surveying his domain, a large estate on the village's edge, its walls holding secrets as old as the village itself. Nearby, a child chases a stray dog, laughter mingling with the soft rustle of leaves. In this serene setting, something stirs beneath the surface, a quiet tension that promises the unraveling of a story far from ordinary. Roger Ackroyd was a man whose presence filled the room long before he entered. His dark eyes held the sharpness of a man who had seen much, and yet carried the weight of unseen burdens. Clad in a tailored suit, his every movement spoke of careful control and quiet authority. Though respected and even admired in King's Abbot, Roger was a figure wrapped in layers that few dared to peel back. As he stood by the window of his grand estate, he watched the village he'd called home for years. Neighbors passed by, some greeting him with polite smiles, others with a hint of wariness. There were stories whispered behind closed doors, rumors of debts and secrets. But Roger moved through it all with practiced ease, a master of maintaining appearances. His voice, when he spoke to his butler Parker, was calm yet commanding. "Everything must be in order, Parker. This village may look peaceful, but I sense the calm before a storm." Parker nodded silently, accustomed to his employer's moods. Outside, the sun dipped lower, shadows stretching longer across the estate's manicured gardens. The evening promised both comfort and the unknown. Dr. James Shepherd was a man of quiet routine and steady hands. In King's Abbot, he was both healer and confidant, a trusted figure who walked the fine line between science and human frailty. His white coat was slightly worn, sleeves rolled up as if ready at any moment to face the unexpected. That afternoon, he made his rounds with practiced ease. Greeting Mrs. Cummings on her porch, he offered a warm smile, his voice gentle yet assured. "How have you been feeling, Mrs. Cummings? Any trouble with your heart?" She replied softly, "Better, thank you, doctor. Your visits do me good." In the background, the village's peaceful hum continued, the chime of the church bell, the clip-clop of horses' hooves on cobblestones, the murmur of distant conversations. But Dr. Shepherd's mind was elsewhere, touched by a vague unease he couldn't quite place. Later, walking along the lane, he paused, staring thoughtfully at the Ackroyd estate. He knew that beneath its polished surface, secrets stirred secrets he would soon find himself entangled in. Mrs. Ferrars was the kind of woman whose presence whispered of untold stories. Draped in dark, elegant clothing, she moved with the quiet grace of someone accustomed to solitude. The village watched her with a mix of curiosity and caution, for there were rumors some said she carried a heavy secret, others that her past was stained by tragedy. One afternoon, as she sat in her dimly lit parlor, a neighbor, Mrs. Blake, ventured to visit. Their conversation was low, measured, each word weighted with unspoken meaning. "Is it true, Muriel?" Mrs. Blake asked gently. "That you've been troubled lately?" Mrs. Ferrars looked away, a flicker of pain crossing her eyes. "There are things a person must carry alone, my dear." Outside, the gentle rain began to fall, tapping softly against the window pane. The atmosphere thickened with quiet tension, as if the village itself held its breath. Mrs. Ferrars' silhouette faded into the shadows, a woman both part of the community and apart from it. Her secrets would soon ripple through King's Abbot, changing everything. Ralph Patton carried the restless energy of youth, tinged with uncertainty. His sharp features and quick smile masked a growing unease that even his closest friends sensed. Dressed in a casual but stylish jacket and scarf, Ralph moved through King's Abbot with the nervous energy of a man trying to outrun his past. One afternoon, he met Flora Ackroyd near the village square. Their conversation was light on the surface, but beneath the words, tension pulsed. "Ralph, you've been distant lately," Flora said, her voice a mix of worry and frustration. He shrugged, forcing a laugh. "It's nothing, really. Just things to deal with." Nearby, a group of villagers watched with knowing eyes, whispers barely masked. Rumors of deaths and reckless nights clung to Ralph's name like shadows. Later, Roger Ackroyd's sharp gaze caught Ralph from across the garden. A flicker of disappointment and concern passed between them, a silent battle neither wished to voice aloud. In the quiet village, beneath polite smiles, trouble brewed. Parker, the ever-watchful butler, moved through the grand halls of Roger Ackroyd's estate with quiet precision. His sharp eyes missed little, his posture straight, embodying the dignity and discipline of years spent in service. To many, he was simply a figure in the background, but Parker carried the weight of the household's secrets tucked behind his composed facade. That evening, as the fading light filtered through the tall windows, Parker reported to Roger with his usual calm. "Sir, all the guests have arrived, and the servants are prepared for the evening." Roger nodded, his gaze steady. "Good, Parker. Keep me informed of anything unusual." Later, Parker checked on the household staff, exchanging brief but firm words. He knew the value of discretion. The estate demanded order above all. Outside, the village's peace seemed unshakable, yet Parker sensed the undercurrents. There were glances exchanged, whispers behind closed doors, the kind that could unsettle even the most loyal of hearts. He paused by the window, looking out over the sprawling estate, the twilight casting long shadows. In the quiet, Parker's mind worked quietly, cataloging the day's events, every detail, every movement. In a house of secrets, Parker was both guardian and observer. Flora Ackroyd carried herself with the delicate poise of someone used to both family expectations and unspoken burdens. Dressed in a modest yet elegant dress, she wandered the garden paths of the estate, the early evening light catching the soft waves of her hair. Her eyes, bright yet thoughtful, held a quiet strength that belied her youth. She paused beneath a flowering arbor, lost in thought, before a friend approached gently. "Flora, you seem troubled. Is everything all right?" She gave a small, reassuring smile. "It's nothing, just a lot on my mind." Her friend nodded, sensing more beneath the surface, but choosing to respect her silence. Nearby, the distant murmur of the village drifted softly through the air, mingling with the gentle rustling of leaves. Flora's mind wandered to Ralph, to her Uncle Roger, to the swirling rumors that tangled around them all. She felt caught between loyalty and fear, love and uncertainty. As night began to fall, Flora took a deep breath, steadying herself. In the stillness, she found a flicker of resolve. The calm surface of King's Abbot concealed many secrets, and she was determined to face whatever lay beneath. The heartbeat of King's Abbot pulsed gently in its daily rhythms. Shopkeepers tidied their windows, their hands steady despite the subtle tension beneath the surface. The postman made his rounds, his footsteps muffled on the damp cobblestones. Children played in the narrow lanes, their laughter ringing clear and bright, a hopeful contrast to the hushed whispers among adults. An elderly man, leaning on his cane, paused to exchange greetings with a neighbor. "Still the same old village, eh?" he said with a faint smile. "Hardly," the neighbor replied, her voice lowering. "Something's unsettled us all lately." The church bell tolled softly, marking the passage of another hour. From the bakery came the comforting aroma of fresh bread, mingling with the crisp scent of autumn leaves. Despite the subtle unease that threaded through the village, life moved on. The familiar scenes of everyday existence formed a fragile shield around the darker truths waiting to surface. In the calm before the coming storm, King's Abbot wore its peaceful mask well. As dusk deepened into night, a series of quiet arrivals disturbed the usual stillness of the Ackroyd estate. Guests cloaked in shadows approached the grand doorway, their faces half hidden beneath hats and collars. The air was thick with anticipation, mingling with the faint scent of polished wood and cigar smoke. Roger stood near the door, greeting each visitor with a firm handshake and a courteous nod. "Welcome," he said smoothly, though his eyes held a flicker of guarded concern. Inside, the murmurs of conversation filled the richly appointed rooms. Parker moved discreetly, attending to each guest with practiced efficiency. Laughter rose and fell, but beneath the surface, an undercurrent of tension threaded through every exchange. In the corner, Ralph exchanged a quick, anxious glance with Flora. Neither spoke, but their expressions betrayed the unspoken worries that had taken root. Outside, the village lay quiet and dark, unaware of the complex dance unfolding behind the grand windows. The night promised both secrets revealed and shadows deepened. The clock ticked steadily as the evening deepened, each second echoing faintly in the vast halls of the Ackroyd estate. Behind closed doors, whispers floated like ghosts unseen but deeply felt. The guests spoke in hushed tones, their eyes darting nervously toward one another. In the dimly lit study, Roger sat alone, fingers tapping lightly on the polished wood. His gaze was distant, troubled. Outside, the wind stirred the leaves, carrying with it the sense of impending change. In the village, conversations paused abruptly as someone passed by with urgent news, faces tightening with unease. Even the usually calm Dr. Shepard found his thoughts clouded, a subtle shadow crossing his features. "Something's coming," Parker murmured quietly to himself, eyes scanning the darkening grounds. The night was heavy with silence, but beneath it, the steady pulse of a secret waited ready to unravel and rewrite everything the village thought it knew. A cold silence fell over King's Abbot early one morning, broken only by the distant crow of a rooster and the soft rustling of autumn leaves. The village was slow to wake, but news traveled fast. Mrs. Ferrars, the mysterious widow who had long kept her secrets close, had been found dead in her dim parlor. The scene was grim, her chair tipped slightly, a faint trace of lavender lingering in the air. A servant's startled cry had summoned neighbors and the local constable, whose somber face told a story more chilling than any words could. Dr. Shepard arrived quickly, his footsteps steady but heart heavy. His trained eyes took in the stillness of the room, searching for signs beyond the obvious. The usual calm of the village shattered, replaced by whispered fears and questions that clung to the crisp morning air. Villagers gathered cautiously outside the house, their faces etched with shock and curiosity. What secrets had died with Mrs. Ferrars, and what shadows would her passing cast over the quiet streets of King's Abbot? Amid the growing murmurs, a note of foreboding echoed, this was only the beginning. The news of Mrs. Ferrars' death rippled through King's Abbot like a sudden chill wind, unsettling the village's quiet calm. At the bakery, Conversations hushed as patrons exchanged worried glances. The postman paused on his route, the weight of the secret heavy in his steps. Dr. Shepherd, walking down the village lane, found himself drawn into hushed groups of neighbors and friends. "Such a dreadful thing," one woman murmured, clutching her shawl tightly. "Poor Mrs. Ferrars. She never seemed well." Yet beneath the sympathy, a ripple of speculation stirred. What had troubled her so deeply? Some whispered of dark debts, others hinted at secrets best left buried. The village felt its familiar rhythms falter, replaced by cautious whispers and guarded looks. Dr. Shepherd's mind churned, the doctor's calm exterior cracking under the pressure of unanswered questions. He knew this was not merely a passing tragedy, it was a sign that something far more complicated lay beneath the surface. As the church bell tolled the hour, the villagers braced themselves. The peace of King's Abbot was broken, and the shadow of fear had crept into their lives. The news of Mrs. Ferrars' death rippled through King's Abbot like a sudden chill wind, unsettling the village's quiet calm. At the bakery, conversations hushed as patrons exchanged worried glances. The postman paused on his route, the weight of the secret heavy in his steps. Dr. Shepherd, walking down the village lane, found himself drawn into hushed groups of neighbors and friends. "Such a dreadful thing," one woman murmured, clutching her shawl tightly. "Poor Mrs. Ferrars. She never seemed well." Yet beneath the sympathy, a ripple of speculation stirred. What had troubled her so deeply? Some whispered of dark debts, others hinted at secrets best left buried. The village felt its familiar rhythms falter, replaced by cautious whispers and guarded looks. Dr. Shepherd's mind churned, the doctor's calm exterior cracking under the pressure of unanswered questions. He knew this was not merely a passing tragedy, it was a sign that something far more complicated lay beneath the surface. As the church bell tolled the hour, the villagers braced themselves. The peace of King's Abbot was broken, and the shadow of fear had crept into their lives. Among the rumors swirling in King's Abbot, one whispered tale held a sharper edge. Mrs. Ferrars had confessed to a dark secret before her death. The source was a letter, discovered hidden away, hinting at guilt and fear that had haunted her final days. In the dim light of his study, Dr. Shepherd read the letter carefully, his brow furrowed. The words were fragmented but clear, a veiled admission of involvement in something grave, something that had weighed heavily on Mrs. Ferrars' conscience. Across the village, the whispers grew louder. At the local pub, neighbors exchanged stories, each adding their own speculation. "She was a woman tormented," one said quietly. Perhaps her secret finally caught up with her. Yet no one could say for sure what she had confessed to, only that it had set in motion a chain of events no one yet understood. Dr. Shepherd set the letter down, the weight of its meaning settling on his shoulders. The village's peaceful facade was cracking, revealing shadows that would not easily fade. Roger Ackroyd's footsteps echoed softly as he approached the modest Ferrars home. The evening air was cool, tinged with the scent of rain-soaked earth and fading lilacs. He carried himself with his usual calm, yet there was an edge of concern beneath his steady gaze. Inside, the house was dim and quiet. The flicker of a single candle cast dancing shadows on the worn wallpaper. The maid, a pale-faced woman with wary eyes, greeted him with a hesitant nod. "Mr. Ackroyd," she said quietly, "Mrs. Ferrars was troubled before she died. She spoke of burdens she could no longer bear." Roger listened intently, his mind piecing together fragments of a puzzle. "Did she say anything about who might help or harm her?" The maid shook her head, wringing her hands. "No, sir. Just that she feared something from her past." Outside, the rain began to fall in earnest, pattering against the windows like whispered secrets. Roger's thoughts darkened, a knot tightening in his chest. The village's calm was fracturing, and he sensed that the night held far more than shadows. Back at the Ackroyd estate, Dr. Shepherd and Roger stood in the quiet study, the flickering fire casting long shadows on the walls. Between them lay the remains of a note, partially burned, edges curled and blackened, words lost to flame. It's as if someone wanted to hide what she wrote. Roger muttered, frustration tightening his voice. Dr. Shepard nodded, brow furrowed. A message unfinished, or perhaps deliberately destroyed. Either way, it raises more questions than answers. They examined the remnants carefully, piecing together fragments of letters, but the meaning remained elusive. The missing note seemed to hold a key to the mystery, a secret someone feared would be uncovered. Outside, the night deepened, the village silent, but watchful. The house held its breath, waiting for the truth to surface. The weight of uncertainty pressed heavily on them both, as the fragile thread of calm began to unravel. Ralph Peyton's usual easy charm seemed strained as he wandered the village paths, his gaze darting nervously at every shadow. The carefree laughter he once wore like a mask was now thin and fragile, barely hiding a restless storm beneath. He met Flora by the old stone bridge, the place where they often spoke quietly. "You're on edge, Ralph," Flora said softly, her eyes searching his face. He forced a laugh, brushing a stray lock of hair from his forehead. "Just tired, that's all. These days, there's a lot to think about." Flora frowned, sensing more than he said. "People are talking. You can't keep running from this." Nearby, villagers glanced covertly, whispering. Rumors of debts, reckless nights, and secrets clung to Ralph like a shadow he couldn't shake. As he left, his steps quickened, the weight of suspicion pressing on his shoulders. The village's eyes were on him, and he knew it. The village whispered secrets of Mrs. Ferrars passed like brittle leaves in a restless wind. In hushed conversations at the pub and under the spreading chestnut tree, pieces of her history unfolded, a tapestry woven with love, loss, and shadows. "She was once engaged to a man who disappeared without a trace," a villager murmured. "Some say the scandal broke her spirit." At the same time, another voice added, "There were debts, dark debts that followed her." Dr. Shepard listened carefully to these fragments, piecing together the puzzle that extended far beyond the present tragedy. The woman who had seemed so reserved carried a burden the village barely understood. In his study, he reviewed old letters and notes, tracing faint lines that connected the past to the present. The edges blurred between compassion and suspicion. Outside, the village continued its cautious rhythms, unaware how the ghosts of history were shaping its fate. Alone in his dim study, Dr. James Shepard sat quietly, the weight of recent events pressing heavily on his mind. The familiar tick of the grandfather clock filled the silence, each second marking a step deeper into uncertainty. He poured himself a small glass of whiskey, the amber liquid catching the soft glow of the lamp. His eyes lingered on the shadows dancing on the walls, thoughts swirling like autumn leaves caught in a restless breeze. Could he trust the surface calm of the village? Or was something darker lurking beneath? Memories flickered, conversations with Roger, brief glances from Ralph, the distant, haunted look in Mrs. Ferrars' eyes before her death. Each fragment unsettled him, like pieces of a puzzle refusing to fit. The doctor leaned back, sighing softly. His role was clear: to heal and to help. But how do you mend a community fractured by secrets and fear? As the night deepened, Dr. Shepard's thoughts drifted between hope and doubt, caught in the silent pull of a mystery that seemed to grow with every passing moment. A hush fell over King's Abbot as the town crier's bell rang sharply through the morning air. The villagers gathered in the square, anticipation mingling with unease. Hear ye, the crier's voice rang clear. An inquest shall be held regarding the late Mrs. Ferrars. All concerned are urged to attend." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Faces showed apprehension, curiosity, and a hint of dread. The churchyard, once a place of quiet reflection, would soon be the stage for truth and revelation. Dr. Shepard stood quietly at the edge of the gathering, eyes scanning familiar faces, some hopeful, others guarded. The slow march toward answers had begun, and with it, the fragile peace of King's Abbot teetered on the brink. The weight of expectation settled heavily on the village, as shadows lengthened beneath the autumn sun. The night air was thick with quiet tension as darkness settled over the Ackroyd estate. Inside, the rooms were filled with muted conversations and the clinking of glasses. Shadows flickered in candlelight, revealing faces etched with unease. Roger Ackroyd sat by the fireplace, swirling a glass of brandy, his eyes distant yet alert. Across from him, Dr. Shepard studied his friend, sensing the weight of unspoken worries. It feels as though the calm before a storm, doesn't it? Roger mused softly. These past days, there's been something unsettling. Dr. Shepard nodded, voice low. Yes, a shadow hangs over us all. Outside, the wind whispered through the trees, carrying with it a promise of change and night that would unravel the fragile peace of King's Abbot forever. As the clock chimed softly, the friends sat in silence, unaware of the darkness soon to come. The heavy wooden door creaked softly as Dr. Shepard stepped into Roger Ackroyd's study. The room was dim, lit only by the desk lamp and the flickering fireplace, casting dancing shadows on the walls. Roger looked up from his papers, a faint tension in his eyes. James, you're just in time. I was hoping you might shed some light on recent events. Dr. Shepard nodded, closing the door behind him. It's troubling, Roger. The village feels different, the air thick with worry. Roger sighed deeply, running a hand through his hair. I fear what we don't know is more dangerous than what we do. They spoke quietly, voices low, as the night deepened outside. Dr. Shepard noticed the tight line of Roger's jaw and the restless tapping of his fingers. We must be cautious, Roger said finally. There are eyes watching, and not all intentions are pure. Dr. Shepard agreed, feeling the weight of the moment settle between them. In that room, filled with old books and fading light, two men understood that the calm before the storm was slipping away. The quiet of the night shattered with a piercing scream that cut through the stillness like a blade. It echoed down the corridors of the Ackroyd estate, sending a ripple of panic through the household. Housemaids and servants rushed toward the source, their footsteps hurried and breathless. Dr. Shepard was the first to arrive, his medical training overriding shock. In the dimly lit hallway, they found Flora, pale and trembling, pointing toward Roger's study. He's been hurt, she stammered. Inside, Roger Ackroyd lay slumped in his chair, a dark stain spreading across his shirt. The room was eerily silent, except for the ticking clock on the wall. Parker appeared at the doorway, face ashen but composed. I found him like this, Doctor. There was no one else in the house. Dr. Shepard knelt, checking for a pulse. His expression tightened. Roger was gone. Outside, the village seemed to hold its breath, the shadows growing deeper, the mystery thickening with every heartbeat. The room felt colder now, the air heavy with the finality of death. Doctor, Shepard knelt beside Roger Ackroyd's lifeless form, his trained eyes noting every detail with clinical precision, the dark stain spreading across the front of his shirt, the stillness of his hands. Parker stood nearby, face drawn but composed, while Flora's trembling fingers clutched a handkerchief, eyes wide with shock. It's no accident, Dr. Shepard said quietly. This was murder. Outside, the household staff gathered silently in the dim corridor, whispers hushed and glances wary. The familiar walls of the estate now felt like a cage, enclosing secrets too heavy to bear. Dr. Shepard stood, taking a deep breath as his gaze swept the room. We must call the police immediately. Flora nodded, voice barely a whisper. Who could do this? Why? The question hung in the air, unanswered and heavy. Within minutes, constables arrived, their footsteps echoing through the grand halls of the Ackroyd estate. The household was swept into a tense whirlwind of questioning and observation. Inspector Raglan, a stern man with keen eyes, took charge. No one is to leave the premises, he ordered firmly. This house is now a crime scene. Dr. Shepard accompanied the inspector, answering questions calmly but carefully. Parker provided a detailed account of the evening's events, his loyalty to Roger evident, but his demeanor cautious. Flora stood close by, eyes wide but guarded. Ralph arrived shortly after, his face pale and strained. The investigation unfolded with deliberate care, each detail examined, each alibi noted. The village's fragile peace shattered, replaced by suspicion and unease. Outside, the night deepened, the stars obscured by thick clouds. Inside, Secrets began to stir in the shadows, waiting to be uncovered. Flora stood near the grand staircase, her hands trembling slightly as she tried to steady her breath. The weight of the tragedy pressed heavily upon her, and yet her eyes held a flicker of determined resolve. Ralph appeared beside her moments later, his usually confident demeanor cracked by the shock. "Flora," he said quietly, voice rough. "We need to stay strong, for Uncle Roger and for ourselves." She nodded, though a flicker of doubt crossed her face. But who could have done this, and why? Their whispered conversation was interrupted by the distant murmur of voices, the household and police moving through the estate, searching for answers. Around them, the familiar walls seemed to close in, suffused with suspicion and grief. Ralph glanced toward the gathering crowd, then back to Flora. "We're all under a microscope now, every word, every action." Flora swallowed hard, steeling herself. "Then we must be careful. The truth will come out, one way or another." Together, they faced the growing storm, their shared fears weaving an unspoken bond between them. Inspector Raglan led the search through Roger's study with methodical precision. Every surface was examined, papers sifted, drawers opened, and the broken watch found lying on the floor carefully bagged as evidence. Parker hovered nearby, observing quietly but with a hint of unease. "Dr. Shepard pointed out details only he had noticed: the faint scent of lavender lingering near the desk, the way some documents seemed hastily rearranged." The inspector's eyes narrowed as he considered each clue. "This watch. It stopped at precisely 9:15, he remarked. "That may be a crucial piece of the timeline." Flora and Ralph watched from the doorway, their faces taut with tension. Every discovery added new layers to the mystery, deepening the shadows rather than clearing them. Outside, the village seemed to hold its breath, waiting for the truth to emerge from the tangled web of secrets. Word of Roger Ackroyd's murder spread swiftly through King's Abbot, the village's once steady heartbeat now replaced by a nervous, jittery pulse. In the dim light of the local pub, voices lowered to murmurs, eyes darting toward the door. "Who could do such a thing here?" whispered one villager, fingers clutching a trembling glass. "Someone among us," replied another, voice tight with fear. "It's not just the estate, it's all of us." Children sensed the change too, their laughter fading into wary silence as parents pulled them close. The very streets seemed to shrink, shadows deepening with suspicion. Dr. Shepard moved quietly through the village, offering calm where he could, but even he could not dispel the growing unease. The fragile veil of normalcy was torn, replaced by whispered fears and cautious glances. The nights stretched long, the village caught in a web of uncertainty, where friend and stranger blurred, and trust was a precious, fragile thing. In the quiet of his study, Dr. Shepard replayed the day's events like a careful surgeon examining a wound. Pieces of conversation, fleeting glances, and half-spoken words twisted together in his mind. Something didn't sit right. He thought of Ralph's nervousness, Flora's hesitations, Parker's guarded demeanor. Each held fragments of a truth concealed behind polite facades. His own thoughts unsettled him. Was he missing something obvious? Or worse, was the answer closer than he dared to admit? He poured another drink, the amber liquid catching the lamplight. The village's calm was a fragile mask, one that could shatter at any moment. Determined to uncover the truth, Dr. Shepard made silent vows. The village's shadows held secrets, and he would follow the light wherever it led. As the village grappled with its fears, a new presence arrived: Hercule Poirot, the famed Belgian detective, stepping onto the station platform with a quiet air of assuredness. His sharp eyes scanned the crowd, taking in the rolling countryside and the tense faces gathered. Dr. Shepard met him shortly after, offering a cautious but hopeful smile. "Monsieur Poirot, welcome to King's Abbot." Poirot inclined his head politely, his manner precise yet warm. "Thank you, Doctor. I understand the situation is delicate." Word of Poirot's arrival spread quickly, the villagers whispering with a mixture of curiosity and relief. Perhaps the man known for unraveling the most tangled mysteries would bring light to their darkest night. As Poirot and Dr. Shepard made their way to the Ackroyd estate, The village seemed to hold its breath, waiting for the master detective to begin his careful unraveling of secrets. The quiet village of King's Abbot seemed to pause as Hercule Poirot stepped off the train, his polished shoes clicking on the platform. His presence was calm yet commanding, a man accustomed to unraveling complexities with precision and grace. Dressed impeccably in a tailored suit, with his signature mustache impeccably groomed, Poirot's eyes sparkled with keen intelligence. He surveyed the familiar faces of the waiting villagers, sensing the heavy weight of fear and suspicion that hung in the air. "Dr. Shepherd," Poirot greeted warmly as the village doctor approached. "I am ready to begin. The truth is never far beneath the surface." Together, they walked through the narrow village streets, the soft murmur of whispered conversations trailing behind them. Poirot's mind was already at work, piecing together fragments, reading subtle signs invisible to others. The village might seem tranquil, but Poirot knew better. In every shadow, every glance, there lay a story waiting to be told. Inside the Ackroyd estate, Poirot moved deliberately through the study, his sharp eyes taking in every detail. The room held a heavy silence. The scent of polished wood mingled with something more troubling. He examined the scattered papers on the desk, the broken watch carefully bagged as evidence, and the faint traces of lavender lingering in the air. Each detail was a piece of a larger puzzle. Parker watched silently, his composed demeanor barely hiding his tension. Poirot turned to Dr. Shepherd, his voice calm but authoritative. "Every crime leaves a signature, and every signature tells a story. We must listen carefully." Dr. Shepherd nodded, impressed by Poirot's methodical approach. The house seemed to hold its breath, waiting for the detective's insight to pierce the growing darkness. Poirot's gaze moved deliberately across the room, noting the smallest details others might overlook. His mind worked with the precision of a master craftsman, fitting each piece of evidence into an unseen mosaic. Turning to Dr. Shepherd, he said softly, "Attention to detail is the key. The smallest clue can unlock the largest mystery." He paused by the broken watch. The time it stopped tells us much about the moment of the crime. Poirot's calm demeanor contrasted sharply with the tension that gripped the household. Parker, watching quietly, seemed to hold his breath, aware that the detective's presence was unsettling old routines. With a gentle nod, Poirot continued his inspection, asking pointed questions of the staff each answered with a mix of respect and unease. Dr. Shepherd observed, impressed by Poirot's calm authority and sharp insight. The household held its collective breath, waiting to see what the great detective would uncover. Flora sat in the softly lit parlor, her hands folded tightly in her lap. Her eyes flickered nervously as Poirot settled into the chair opposite her, his gaze steady but kind. "Miss Ackroyd," Poirot began gently, "I wish only to understand, to listen. Your honesty is essential." She swallowed, voice barely above a whisper. "I want to help, Monsieur Poirot, but it's all so confusing, so painful." Poirot nodded thoughtfully. "Sometimes, the truth is a heavy burden, but it is also the light that guides us." Their conversation flowed quietly, words chosen with care. Flora's guarded responses slowly gave way to glimpses of fear, loyalty, and unresolved questions. Outside the window, the village rested under a twilight sky, but within the room, tension stirred, and the detective's insight began to pierce the veil of silence. Ralph Patton stood by the window of the drawing room, his posture defensive, eyes flickering with tension. Poirot approached quietly, his gaze steady and unyielding. "Mr. Peyton?" Poirot began smoothly. "I ask only for your truth. This is a time for honesty." Ralph exhaled sharply, his usual charm tempered by nerves. "I've done things I'm not proud of, but I did not harm my uncle." Poirot nodded thoughtfully, noting the flicker of guilt beneath the surface. "Secrets can be heavy, but the truth is the light we seek." Their conversation was terse, laced with unspoken fears. Ralph's alibi was detailed yet shadowed by uncertainty, his eyes betraying the burden he carried. Nearby, Dr. Shepherd observed quietly. sensing the weight pressing down on Ralph's shoulders. The room seemed to shrink with tension, every word hanging heavy between them. Poirot's probing was gentle but firm, peeling back layers of pretense to glimpse the man beneath. In the village square, whispers about the famed detective spread like wildfire. Groups gathered in clusters, exchanging opinions in hushed tones. "Do you think he'll solve it?" asked a middle-aged woman, knitting nervously. "Only he could unravel such a tangled web," replied an older man, stroking his chin thoughtfully. Children nearby listened with wide eyes, caught between curiosity and unease. The pub was abuzz with speculation, some hopeful, others skeptical. Poirot was an outsider, a figure both revered and questioned. Yet beneath the gossip lay a collective yearning for answers, for justice to restore peace to their fractured community. As Poirot walked through the village later, he noticed the wary glances but met them with quiet confidence, a man ready to face the darkness head-on. Back in the quiet of the study, Poirot carefully sifted through Roger Ackroyd's papers. Each document seemed to whisper secrets: financial ledgers, personal letters, and cryptic notes, some marked with hurried scribbles. His sharp eyes caught inconsistencies others might miss. Payments unaccounted for, names crossed out, and a letter with a carefully concealed message. The pieces formed a pattern, a hidden story beneath the polished surface. Dr. Shepherd watched with growing admiration as Poirot's fingers traced the lines, piecing together motives and relationships with quiet confidence. "Money often tells a tale," Poirot mused softly, "but the heart can write a more complex story." The papers were a map, one that could lead to truth, or deeper into the maze of deception. Poirot held the broken watch carefully, turning it over in his hands. The time it stopped precisely 9:15 was no accident. "It tells us when the crime occurred," Poirot explained to Dr. Shepherd, "but also who might have been nearby." Parker, standing close, nodded silently, his loyalty to Roger clear but his face troubled. "The watch was found near the body," Poirot continued. "A clue left behind, or a message." Dr. Shepherd considered the possibilities. Could someone have tampered with it to mislead us? Poirot's eyes gleamed with sharp certainty. "Every detail matters, Doctor. Nothing is ever as simple as it seems." Outside, the village lay quiet, the night thick with anticipation as the puzzle pieces began to align or perhaps scatter anew. Poirot unfolded the delicate letter from Mrs. Ferrars once more, his keen eyes scanning every word, every carefully chosen phrase. The letter was a fragile thread connecting past fears to present dangers. "This letter," Poirot murmured, "speaks of guilt and secrets kept close. But note the subtle hesitation, the unsaid words." Dr. Shepherd watched as Poirot traced the faint crease where the note had been folded and refolded, evidence of a troubled mind. The letter suggests she feared exposure of a secret that could destroy more than just her own peace. Parker, standing nearby, swallowed hard. "It's a difficult truth for all of us, monsieur," Poirot nodded solemnly. "Indeed, the human heart often hides its darkest truths in the quietest places." The weight of the letter settled in the room, the past reaching forward to shape the unfolding mystery. In the grand drawing room, Poirot gathered the entire household family, staff and guests, their faces a mixture of curiosity and apprehension. The air was thick with tension, every eye fixed on the detective. "Ladies and gentlemen," Poirot began, his voice calm yet commanding, "we are here not to accuse, but to seek truth. Each of you holds a piece of this puzzle." He paced slowly, letting his words sink in. "Secrets, lies, and fears weave a complex tapestry, but the truth will emerge if we are patient and honest." The room was silent except for the soft rustle of clothing and the faint ticking of a clock. Poirot's gaze swept the faces before him, steady and unyielding. "Tonight, we unravel the threads of deception and bring light to the shadows." A collective breath was held the moment before revelation.